Hi, everyone. It's Brittany. And today I want to start with something really simple. Most people exploring awakening already understand, at least intellectually, that they're not the character. But something that many overlook is still happening with a lot of you. The character is still the one trying to wake up. And that's actually why this can feel so confusing, because the character itself is part of the dream. It can learn about awakening and talk about awareness. It can even explain these ideas really well, but it can't wake up. What actually wakes up is the awareness that's been watching the character the whole time. When that becomes obvious, the whole search collapses. The you that you thought you were, the one that was searching, was never the you that wakes up. Now, the things I talk about on this channel are actually very simple, but the brain can turn them into something extremely complicated very quickly. So I want to talk about something that creates a lot of confusion when people start exploring awakening or manifestation or shifting, or really just all of this stuff. Honestly, most of the confusion comes from one really simple mix-up. People are confusing the brain with the mind. Those two things are not the same. The brain is the physical organ in the head. And yes, I'm using air quotes here because even what we call physical is still appearing in awareness. But for the sake of conversation, the brain is basically the mechanism the character uses to function in the world. It processes information and stores memories. It helps you plan things and solve practical problems. That's its job. But when teachers talk about the mind in a deeper sense, they're not talking about the brain. They're pointing to consciousness itself, awareness, the one infinite mind in which everything appears, God. The body appears in it, thoughts appear in it, the entire life of the character appears in it. And that awareness is what you are. Now, the moment people hear something like this, the brain immediately jumps in and tries to understand it. It starts analyzing, trying to logically grasp what awareness is. It tries to figure out how all of this works. And the brain will happily keep doing that forever because that's literally what the brain does. But here's the thing. The brain was never meant to understand what you are. Yes, it can talk about awareness. It can form ideas about awareness. But awareness itself exists prior to thought. It's like a character inside of a dream trying to figure out the dreamer. It can speculate all day long, but it can't step outside the dream to see the one dreaming it. And this is why people get frustrated. The brain keeps trying to participate in something it was never designed to participate in because the brain is part of the character. It's a tool that belongs to the character. So when the brain tries to understand awareness, it's basically trying to step outside of the illusion it's already a part of. It's like a character in a book suddenly trying to figure out the author that's writing the book. from inside that story, the author doesn't exist. That's why this realization doesn't really happen through intellectual understanding. You can have the most sophisticated explanation of consciousness and still feel like nothing has actually shifted, because awareness isn't something the brain discovers. It's what the brain is appearing inside of. When you actually see this directly, everything falls into place. The brain can keep thinking and analyzing things, that's fine. But you no longer follow along because you know it's all irrelevant to what you are. The pressure to figure it out drops, and what's left is the knowing. Awareness was already here before the brain ever started asking questions. There's another thing that I want to clear up, because this is where a lot of people start getting anxious, especially if they've come from manifestation teachings. So you'll sometimes hear teachers like Lester Levinson say something like, every thought manifests. And when people hear that, the brain immediately goes into panic mode, because now they think that every random thought passing through their head is going to create reality. So they start trying to control thinking. They try to monitor every thought and push negative thoughts away. But that's not at all what Lester meant. The brain produces thousands of thoughts every single day. Random ideas, passing worries, little bits of commentary like, I should check my phone. Did I send that email? Did I forget something? Those thoughts come and go constantly. They're not creating your life. What actually manifests is the thought you take to be true about yourself, the thought you're identified with. And the most powerful thought you've ever had, the one that creates all suffering, is the one that says, I am this person. That tiny thought became your entire life, your name, your identity, your story, your body, your history. And you didn't create that by repeating affirmations or visualizing it. You didn't sit there trying to control your thoughts. You simply became convinced that it was true. And there was no debate about it in your mind. You wake up every day and you already know who you think you are. And life organizes itself around that assumption. That's the level that Lester was pointing to. Identification. The thought you're actually being, not the thoughts randomly passing through the brain. Now, when people start hearing that they're not the character, another misunderstanding tends to show up. They start thinking awakening means the personality disappears, or that they're going to lose their individuality somehow, as if they'll become some blank observer that doesn't care about anything anymore. But that's not what happens. The character doesn't disappear, and your personality can still be here. None of that has to go away. What changes is your relationship with it. Before recognition, the character feels like you. It feels fixed and permanent, and it doesn't feel like you ever had a choice in it. But once awareness recognizes itself, you start to see the character as something being expressed through you, something you can explore, reshape, and play with at will. You don't lose individuality. If anything, you gain freedom with it. You're no longer stuck being the character out of habit or conditioning. You're free to express life however you want, whenever you want. And something else naturally happens. You stop fighting the character. A lot of people think the goal is to get rid of the ego or somehow perfect it. But the character was never the problem. The only problem was believing that the character was what you are. Once that belief loosens and you realize the character is perfect exactly the way that it is, then everything really shifts. The character never actually had any power on its own. It's just a role. It's a collection of habits and memories and conditioning. So instead of fighting the character, you start to feel compassion for it. You see its fears and reactions and patterns, and rather than taking those things personally, it becomes more like watching a character in a movie. You can still care about it and want good things for it, but you're no longer trapped inside of it. And sometimes you even start to laugh when you realize how seriously you were taking everything. This is where a lot of freedom starts to appear. Once you're not identified with the character anymore, you're not stuck being that version of yourself forever. You're free to change and free to experience life in completely new ways. And this is another misunderstanding that people often have. They think that if they don't somehow change the character, they won't be able to experience what they want anymore. But that's backwards. The character isn't what experiences life. Awareness is. The character is just one of the things appearing inside that experience. Awareness isn't limited by the current version of the character. That's just one expression or role. Once you see that, life becomes much more fluid. You're no longer trying to protect a fixed identity. You're free to let new expressions show up. You're not forced to be the character anymore. You're choosing to express it in whatever way you want. Life becomes lighter because the character is no longer carrying this impossible burden of being what you are. That's really the freedom that I'm pointing to when I talk about awakening. Not escaping life, just realizing what you are and then living life with a completely different sense of freedom. The body is still here with its thoughts and feelings, but now you see that all of it is appearing in awareness. And that awareness is you. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. I love you all so much. I hope you have an amazing week. If you have any questions, please go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I am happy to take any of your ideas or questions, as I said, and I will talk about it in an upcoming video. So go ahead and leave any of that below. As always, thank you all so much for being here with me, and I love you all so much.